Hello! Welcome to the Orlando Museum of Art's virtual pajama party! My name is Miss Molly and I'm an educator at the museum. We've got an exciting party planned for you tonight filled with music and a special interview with Oliver Jeffers himself. So make sure you have on your favorite pair of pajamas and get ready to have fun. First, let's rock out in the galleries. Please help me in introducing Mr. Richard.
Hi friends, little friends, old friends, little old friends. My name is Richard and welcome to the virtual pajama party here at the Orlando Museum of Art. I would now like to sing a silly song called Zaneyville. It's raining lemonade that makes the chocolate sidewalk melt. The skunks are playing baseball, biggest stink you ever smelt. The earthquakes have on eyeglasses to burrow through the dirt. The donkeys are all having tea and they're wearing matching skirts. That's how it is in Zaneyville, Milky Pinky Zaneyville. Come on down to Zaneyville, I bet you'd fit right in. The cows are driving purple cars with 17 green wheels. The armadillos all have wigs made from orange peels. The captain of the bathtub has set sail across the grass. The rabbits are the slowpokes and the turtles all go fast. That's how it is in Zaneyville, wiggly giggly Zaneyville. Come on down to Zaneyville, I bet you'd fit right in. Admit it. Whoops. If you like to put your pants on backwards and pedal with your hand, the folks from Zaneyville will welcome you with an all-dog band. Row, 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 row. Can you sing like a dog? Ready? Ow, 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 ow. Well, there's kitty cats and helicopters flying upside down. There's rhinos on the Ferris wheel going round and round. Everyone has cake for breakfast topped off with ice cream. You never saw such wacky stuff, not in your wildest dreams. That's how it is in Zaneyville, wiggly giggly Zaneyville. Come on down to Zaneyville, I bet you'd fit right in. That's how it is in Zaneyville, wacky smacky Zaneyville. Come on down to Zaneyville, I bet you'd fit right in. I bet you'd fit right in. Yep, I bet you'd fit right in. All right, now see if you can clap your hands this fast. All right, very nice. Whoops, my mask. Hey, let's do this next song. This song is a story song. Songs tell stories just like storybooks. And it's about a little baby bird named Bobo, all right? And Bobo's just a little fuzzy baby about this big. Maybe you've heard me sing this song before. What we're going to do is we're going to scold Bobo, okay? Because he's just a baby and he keeps trying to jump out of the nest. And that's not a good idea, right? Because he's just a baby. So his mother has to sing this song to him. Oh no, Bobo bird, you better get back in the nest. Then she says, oh no, Bobo bird, you can't go out half dressed. Because the birds got to have all their feathers, just like we got to wear our clothes when we go out of the house, right? So here's what we do. Hold up one pointy finger like this. You know how to scold a baby, right? Use your one pointy finger and shake it at the baby. We're going to shake it at Bobo. We're going to sing, oh no, Bobo bird, you better get back in the nest. Then you say, oh no, Bobo bird, you can't go out half dressed. And you can shake your head no too. All right. So get out your finger and let's sing that part. Ready? Oh no, Bobo bird, you better get back in the nest. Oh no, Bobo bird, you can't go out half dressed. Good. Now I will sing the story part, and your job is to help me scold Bobo when he misbehaves, right? Bobo is a baby jay and he just won't be still. His mother brings him worms and bugs, but he goes unfulfilled. Hanging out on the side of the nest is what he always does. Bobo wants to fly about, but he's just covered in fuzz. Okay, ready? Oh no, Bobo bird, you better get back in the nest. Oh no, Bobo bird, you can't go out half dressed. Good, now keep your finger ready, because he misbehaves like every single verse. Bobo, he won't listen, and he hops on down the limb. All of the birds in the big oak tree begin to laugh at him. Hey, Bobo, what have you got on? Are those your fuzzy drawers? You better go back home or you'll be the neighborhood eyesore. Huh, ready? Oh no, Bobo bird, you better get back in the nest. Oh no, Bobo bird, you can't go out half dressed. I told you he was naughty. Well, Bobo bops on down the branch and hops off at the end. His little wings go flippy flap as he starts to descend. Down, down, down goes Bobo J, he's in for quite a smack. Don't look, just in time his mom swoops by to catch him piggyback. Oh, his mom caught him. Take your hand like this and wipe your brow in a gesture of relief. Whew, that was close. Ready? Oh no, Bobo bird, you better get back in the nest. Oh no, Bobo bird, you can't go out half dressed. Good thing his mom was paying attention, right? Bobo J, you'd best behave and stop all this nonsense. You'll hurt yourself, and without your clothes, some birds will take offense. Soon enough, you'll be grown up with feathers white and blue. You'll fly around all by yourself, I'll be so proud of you. Ready? Oh no, Bobo bird, you better get back in the nest. Oh no, Bobo bird, you can't go out half dressed. Okay, that's the story of Bobo the baby bird. His mom caught him in the nick of time. But let's sing it one more time. But this time, see if you can find a real life baby Bobo bird to sing to. Maybe your brother or your sister or your dog or your dad if he's been misbehaving. So get out your pointing finger and sing to a Bobo near you. Ready? Oh no, Bobo bird, you better get back in the nest. Oh no, Bobo bird, you can't go out half dressed. Okay, nice job. Hey, you may have been wondering what this weird looking necklace is I'm wearing. It's not really a necklace. It's actually a musical tool. All right, I'll show you what it does. See this here? You probably have one of these. You pick these up at parties all the time. That's a harmonica, right? And you hold it in your hand like this and play it by blowing air through the little holes. But I like to play the guitar too, and I can't really, it doesn't work. I haven't got enough hands. This octopus could probably do it, but not me. So this little necklace thing I got is a harmonica holder. And if you look, it works just like a mouse trap. It snaps shut on the harmonica and holds it for me like my hands would do, only now I can let it sit there and I can use my hands to play this. See how that works? All right, now we're going to do a dancing song here for the last tune because I think we need to do some dancing, don't you? This one is called Pooch Smooch. It's about when your dog kisses you right in the face with his dog breath, all right? So when we're singing Pooch Smooch like that, I want you to make a yucky face and go, ew, like a big dog just kissed you right there and left some slobber and stuff. All right, so let's practice. 1, 2, 3. Pooch Smooch, ew. I have to do that because my dog never goes to the dentist and it gets kind of rough. All right, so this is a dancing song, so you need to clear out some furniture and stuff and make room to show your dance moves. Ready? Your doggy likes to scratch and fetch and dig under the fence. He likes to eat and sleep and use his nose to detect scents. But when he wants to show his love, his only option's this. He's gonna get right in your face and give a poochy kiss. Pooch smooch, ew. Pooch smooch, yucko. You gotta grin and bear it, cause your doggy's gotta share it. Pooch smooch, ew. Your doggy, he can't talk, he can't borrow the family car and drive it to the flower shop. That would be bizarre. He can't send you a Valentine, his only option's this. He's gonna say he loves you with a big wet sloppy kiss. Pooch smooch, yeah. Pooch smooch, ew. Scrunch your face up good and tight, refusal would be impolite. Pooch smooch. All right, now I want you to get out your clapping instruments and clap this beat like this. All right? If you have some shakers or a tambourine, you can shake along, but keep that going, okay? puppy breath was sweet. Now his grown-up dog breath just might knock you off your feet. But if you got a scratch or scrape, you just remember this. Nothing makes a boo-boo better than a doggy kiss. Pooch, smooch. Ew. Pooch, smooch. Yucko. Shut your face and close your eyes. It's how your doggy testifies. Pooch, smooch. Pooch, smooch. Pooch, smooch. Pooch, smooch. All right, now clap your hands really fast, make a big finale. That's French for the end. Nice job. Thanks for keeping the beat. Hey, and do this. Wipe off the dog kisses off your face. All right, and then I'm also going to wipe off my kisses off my harmonica. Hey, my name's Richard. Thanks for joining us at the virtual pajama party here at the Orlando Museum of Art. And I hope I see you around outside in the real world very soon. Bye.
Wow, Mr. Richard is so fun. It was great to get all our wiggles and giggles out. Now, I think it's time to settle down for our special interview. Get comfy in your pajamas and get ready to meet the one and only Oliver Jeffers. Hello, Oliver. My name is Molly Lawson, and I'm here at the Orlando Museum of Art.
Hello, Molly.
This is our Orlando Museum of Art virtual pajama party. And so I'm in my pajamas right here.
I know. I got locked out of my apartment. My wife is out doing errands with our daughter because I was hoping I could get back and actually get into bed for it. But I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to do it from my brother's studio here.
You look great and your setting looks wonderful. I see there's a crayon in your background. Love that.
Yes, there is indeed, yes.
And so where are you joining us from right now, Oliver?
From Belfast in Northern Ireland.
Oh my goodness. And so you are how many hours ahead? 4 or 5 hours, I think, from Orlando.
From EST, I'm 5 hours ahead.
5 hours ahead. Boy,
yeah.
Wow. Well, let's get this pajama party started. And I'm going to begin by asking you a few questions from one of your most popular books, The Day the Crayons Quit by Drew Daywalt. The big question I have with this book is it challenging for you to be able to illustrate somebody else's words? Because I know you write a lot of your own books. You are an author and illustrator. So was that difficult for this book?
Well, it's the funny thing is, before The Day the Crayons Quit came along, I had vowed that I would never illustrate somebody else's book. Because as somebody who both writes and illustrates books, and I know people who just illustrate, it can be a frustrating experience whenever an illustrator or a visual storyteller is handed a manuscript that is complete and with no way to go back and change that in any way, where you might, as a visual person, be able to see how you could show part of the story without saying it. And I think that's one of the greatest tools that somebody who both writes and illustrates a book, they can see the picture in its totality rather than just one little bit. And so I always thought that, no, that's not for me. I don't think I will ever do that. And then one day I was in my editor's office in New York, in the Penguin offices, and he very strategically said, I just have to run out here to make a quick phone call. Don't look at anything on my desk.
Oh, wow.
Of course, he left. The first thing I did was I wondered what's on his desk, and it was a copy of the manuscript for The Day the Crayons Quit. It was a little different back then in its first iteration, but right away I started looking through it and I was like, this is so simple. It's great. And normally the problem that I would have with illustrating somebody else's picture book text immediately was addressed, because there's no way in which the pictures could inform the words in this, because they're letters. It's done. That's it. There's no way to possibly say that it could be shown better. And because of just how rigid that structure was, I just immediately fell in love with the idea, and I could see right at that first instance what should be done with it. And I asked my editor when I came back, I said, who's illustrating this? And he said, no one yet. Why are you interested? And I was like, you tricked me. And I was like, yes, because I can see just so clearly how it should be done. And it would really annoy me if somebody else did it, but did it wrong. And I just said, this should be done the most absolutely simple way possible, which is with the actual physical letters and crayon drawings. And that's it. And it has to be locked on that simple. So, Michael Green was the editor, and Drew Daywalt and I, and we made some minor revisions here and there, and it just remained that simple.
Wow.
And I've only ever actually illustrated one other person's book, and that was an Irish author, Owen Colfer, and I met him on a book tour in a writers' festival in Sydney, Australia, and then again a week later at Auckland in New Zealand. And in that time, we got to know each other quite well. And we sort of said, oh, I like you. I like your humor. We should do something together. And lots of people say that. And I was like, yeah, sort of being polite. And about a week later, he sent me an email with an idea for a story just based on the kind of things that we both found funny. And that was Imaginary Fred. And immediately, again, I knew it was like, this could be done, should be done. And it should be done very, very simply. But those are the only two times I've ever worked with another person who's the writer.
Really just depends on the script and the writer, right?
Yeah. Actually, there's one other instance which is completely different, where I made A Child of Books with Sam Winston. Yes. But that really confused people because both of our names are on the cover. And when people say, well, who wrote it and who illustrated it? And we both say, well, we both did, because we both wrote it and we both illustrated it.
Noticed that because in that book it says a book by both of you.
Yes.
And it doesn't give ownership to the writer or the illustration. So
no, because he made all of those typographic landscapes. I did all of the characters, but we worked very closely together on how they interact. And he came up with the basic premise of the concept, and I came up with a bunch of the lines. And so we really did truly write it and illustrate it together. And it became very difficult to say, this was one person's work and this was another person's work, because it just bled in and out of each other.
Right. We're going to get to that book in a second. I have two more questions actually with the crayons. Specifically, I see that you like to work with gouache a lot. And for those who don't know what gouache is, it's an opaque type of watercolor, can't see through it as much. So for the crayon books, it seems like you created most of the crayon illustrations behind me in actual crayon, but then the crayons themselves in gouache. Why did you choose to do that? Why not the entire?
Well, the crayons themselves needed to be separate from the art that they were making to be able to show that they're not part of the drawing. This is their word, but they are the character that owns that page. So they needed to look more like actual crayons rather than a drawing of a crayon. And gouache is nice. It's tight and quite graphic in a way. That's what illustrators used to use for advertisements for magazines, because it reproduces. It's easy to photograph because there's no reflection off of it, and it's very, very solid and almost graphic. And it takes it takes colored pencil quite well, so you can add on top of it with a texture. So that's why I use gouache for that, so that the character of the crayon itself stood out from the background. So yes, you got me in a technicality. There's 3 types of art in that book. There's the photographs of the letters, the crayon drawings, and then the crayons themselves.
So how was it working with crayon in particular? Was that difficult? Was that challenging? Or was it easier?
It was surprisingly challenging to go back and try to remember or unremember how to draw it properly, because I wanted to be able to make these drawings look like they were done by Duncan, who is, we never really specify how old he is, but between 4 and 7, say. And once you know how to draw, it's difficult to unlearn that. And I ended up doing a lot of the drawings with my left hand that the crayon had supposedly drawn, and I would use at that point. This was, I'm normally right-handed, so I used my other hand. So there was there was a degree of lack of control. But I also would go to. This is before I had kids. I went to some friends who had children, like my brother, my nephews, his sons at the time were, I think, 5 or 6, and I give a few friends' kids a list of things to draw, and I asked them to draw it multiple times. So I would get, I'd say, can you draw me 15 princesses? Can you draw me 15 dinosaurs? And then I would look and see what they were doing over and over again. And in a few cases, some of those drawings were just so perfect and they just looked so good that I ended up putting them straight in the book.
So you did almost like a case study of the kids.
Yeah.
I love that.
Exactly.
Wow. That's heavy research, more research than I would have thought that you would have done for this. It's incredible.
Well, because more than I thought I was going to do as well. But it's whenever I started drawing them, I was like, no, it looks too finished. It looks too proper. It doesn't look like the kind of ambience and atmosphere that I want. Mm-hmm. So that's when I just resorted to asking the people who know best, which is the kids themselves.
Absolutely. Speaking of kids, I do have a few questions from some special kids. So Carly in 5th grade would like to know, if you could make any new crayon color, what would it be and why?
Ooh, if I could make any new crayon color, what would it be and why? Yeah, that's a tricky one, because I think pretty much all of the colors have, I bet, if you can look at, there's lots of different companies that make crayons, but you'd be hard pressed to find a name of or a color of a crayon that doesn't exist. Although I think it would be, and I can't remember the name of type of blue, but for the first time in like 200 years, they discovered a new type of blue pigment. And scientists did, and I can't remember what they call it, but I would make that into a crayon. It's like this really vibrant, rich blue. Yeah.
Like that. All right. Great answer. Ava in 3rd grade would like to know, how did you come up with the idea to draw the peach crayon naked?
Because the crayon box is part of the crayons world and not actually in drawing the crayons have made, it is also done in gouache. I wanted to come up with my own crayon box design rather than use a company that might be well known and very, very popular, because I wanted this book to be on its own and not look like an advertisement for somebody else. So it was a little bit of fun designing the packaging of that box. But in the letter, it says that he's naked and he's too afraid to come outside of the box. So it's one of those ones where I didn't have to think very hard about how that was shown. The fun part of that was designing the crayon packaging in the box that they would live in.
It's very creative. I love it. Love it. Last question for this book is from Paloma in kindergarten. And first off, she would like you to know that she uses orange, yellow, and red to make the color of the sun. But her
very
question,
diplomatic.
Right? Yes. Her question, though, to you is, which picture from this book did you like drawing the best?
Which picture from that book? I think my absolute favorite was drawing the white crayon and the white cat in the snow.
Okay, the white crayon, the white cat in the snow. Why?
Well, because that was one it's not mentioned in the text at all. We just needed to show what the white crayons looked like. So I played about with how he's complaining he's invisible, so you don't see the crayon at all. It's just his face and the marking of the wrapper. But when we were kids, we used to joke that we would have a white piece of paper and would say, "Do you like my drawing?" And would say to our parents, I'm like, "There's nothing there." It's like, "Oh, there is. It's a drawing of a white cat in snow with his eyes closed." But this instance, I didn't want to just have a white piece of paper. So it's, for the first time ever, it's a white cat in the snow with his eyes open.
I love that. So there's a little bit of childhood history there with that one.
There is, yes.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer, Oliver. All right, well, we're going to move on to your next story that we have featured right now in our galleries. And this is Once Upon an Alphabet. Mm-hmm. And so you wrote and illustrated this book. How did you come up with the idea to create short stories for each letter of the alphabet?
So I have a series of books called the Hueys.
Right.
And the Hueys, they were kind of invented in my mind as a way to do concept books. So like, opposites or colors or numbers, things like that. Yeah. But they didn't really fit an alphabet book because I thought their word was too small for an alphabet book. And I started thinking about, if I was going to do an alphabet book, how would it go? And that was just at the back of my head. And for all of my other books, I have sketchbooks and sketchbooks filled with, say, you know, this moose belongs to me. There'll be pages and pages of me trying to work out what happens in this page of the story. How do we get from here to here in the story? But it's also where I put all the little ideas I have for stories that might be books one day. And sometimes, actually a lot, I'll have an idea and I'll try to work out, is this strong enough for a book? And it won't really be. I'm like, okay, but I've got, you know, it's there in my sketchbook. And one day I was looking back through my sketchbooks because I wanted to find a particular drawing. And I noticed just how many half-finished little ideas I had for possible books. But none of them were quite big enough ideas to fill a whole book. But I was like, why don't I do a book of short stories? And at the same time, I was thinking about an alphabet book, and I just put those two things together. I was like, I wonder if I could come up with a short story for every letter of the alphabet. And really, that's how it went about.
And was that challenging to find a story that goes with every single letter? Where there's a certain letter that you had more difficulty with than another?
Oh yeah, there were some letters that were quite difficult, and they all kind of, the book took place. It took a couple of years to make, but so I would, you know, at the start I had a letter for every story, and then I would read through them, and I would think to myself, well, these four are really good, and then these four are okay, and then these four don't quite hold up to the rest. So I'd say, well, throw these four out, and I got to come up now with new stories for these four letters. And then I would do that, and then they would be the best. And so all in all, I ended up going through 3 or 4 different ideas for most letters. I think there's only 1 or 2 letters that stayed the same the whole way through.
Wow. So through process of elimination, really. You
narrowed it. Really was, or just, you know, my quality control. Does this pass the OJ test of, is this good enough? Can this be in this book with all these other stories? And if the answer was no, then out it went.
It's out. All right. I like that answer. One thing that I found interesting is we have one of your original illustrations for the letter O here. And it's really bright and vibrant. The use of blue. I find it incredibly stunning. But when I opened the book, I noticed that you chose to go with this version for the letter O. Why did you choose to go with a version with less color for this particular story?
So at one point I will finish illustrating the book in full color, but I got, I'd say 75%, 3/4 of the way through illustrating the entire book in color in oil paints. And I was showing a couple of friends the book, and here's how it's going. And these 2 friends happen to also be picture book illustrators. And when I'm working on a book, I will pin up the loose drawings. I'll work out what's on every page, and I'll put the whole book up on a wall with the loose drawings. And I noticed they kept not looking at the color art and going back to just the quick sketches on the wall, and they're like, you know, why are you doing that? And they said, well, these are really interesting. And they sort of said, I don't know, they found that more interesting than the full color art that was on the page. And I think sometimes what can happen is if you're doing a drawing, often the sketch before you do the finished drawing is better than the finished drawing, because of the finished drawing you try to be too careful and you try to be too neat, and it loses its personality and it loses its atmosphere. And whenever I was looking at all of these full color pictures that might go in this, it suddenly started to feel to me like maybe this is going to be more like a coffee table art book than a book of stories. And I didn't want the art to get in the way of the stories. So it was a really hard decision to make, because if I stopped illustrating it at full color at that point and changed my mind backwards, I had run out of time. So I really deliberated and thought about it carefully. And in the end, I thought, they're right. There's just something that's accessible, that's easy to get into. And the black and white line drawings just win people over in a way that the full color art wouldn't. And it's more about the stories and just quick sketches, because and again, like a lot of the books, I'll try to just go with the simplest thing, because it allows people into the book, and kids looking at home can think, it was like, oh, I could draw that. It's like, yeah, you could, and you should, and do, as opposed to like really detailed, fine finished paintings because I can't paint like that. But I just think it can be more fun sometimes if something's just loose and allows people in.
Mm-hmm. I feel like in a lot of your illustrations, you use very simple but defined and intentional lines. And is
Yeah.
that through doing so many different sketches that you come to that decision? Are you oftentimes choosing the first sketch that you did rather than the, 16th sketch?
Exactly. And I've always thought with books, for me, with picture books, I like to be as economical as possible. And I mean, what I mean by that is, how can I get across the feeling of this illustration, the feeling of this drawing, and what's happening in with as few details as possible?
Yeah.
Because then that leaves much more room for whoever's reading the book to put themselves in the story. And maybe then the story isn't happening in this like really, really specific place that I've picked out. But if I leave enough room for them, maybe it's happening down the road from where they live. If you can leave something vague enough, it lets people in. So yes, with picture books, I've always tried to get the information across with as little detail as possible.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. Let's talk about another book. And this book is one of my absolute favorites of yours. And so curiosity and exploration always seems to be a common theme throughout a lot of your books, but humor for sure is something that seems to be present in every single one almost. And that is The Incredible Book-Eating Boy, though, specifically. This book makes me laugh from page one. And so how did you come up with this idea, this crazy idea of a boy who eats books?
I came up with the idea for The Boy Who Eats Books just by making a drawing. And people always say, what's your favorite thing to draw? And that changes all the time. For example, this year it's thunderclouds. I don't know why. Last year it was light bulbs, and I tend to just draw them over and over again in my notebooks as I'm thinking of something else. Huh? And one year it was books, and just drawing books flying through the air, books closed. And at one point I drew a book flying through the air and then just drew somebody underneath it, but instead of catching it with their hands, their mouth was open. And I looked at it and was like, oh, that's interesting. And then how I came up with the idea for what happens in the story about how he gets smarter is I was working on a fine art painting project with this scientist, this quantum physicist at the same time. And we were talking about, or rather he was talking about, I was trying to keep up, about this quest for the unifying theory of everything. So how scientists can prove, it's ultimate intelligence to try and attempt to understand absolutely everything. And so I took the idea of that about one like really smart person or just knowing absolutely everything there was to know in the world and applied it to this drawing that I'd made of somebody eating books. I was like, well, what if then the books go into his stomach and he can get the information that way? And then I was like, this is too good. Somebody must have done this book before. And I then spent about a month researching. I was like, I can't believe it. Nobody has told this story yet. And I just felt lucky enough that this story was always going to be told by somebody. And I was the one who happened to come across it first.
It's funny that you say that because I felt like when I first read it, it felt familiar to me in some way, as if I've read it before. But maybe it's just the thought of always wanting to quickly absorb a book, right? And just immediately know the knowledge. So it's a fantastic idea for a book.
At some point, somebody was interested in turning it into a feature film, which never happened, but they said that they compared it to a couple of different people had it and people were getting it wrong. But then this one guy said, it's like there's a film that came out a bunch of years after the book called Limitless with Bradley Cooper. Yes. And they said that Limitless is like the adult version, the adult-friendly version of the Book-Eating Boy. And I was like, yeah, I get that. I like that.
It is. Well, maybe this should someday. But in making this book, you used a lot of collage, right? And did you take physically used books and collage them together? What books did you use? Were they a specific kind of book?
They were books that were being, I had started collecting books that were being thrown out by libraries in Northern Ireland, by old schools, books that I would just find in the trash or whatever. And I had been doing that for a long time. And there was an exhibition, again, a fine art project that I was working on at the same time called Book. And we were collecting old book covers to print the invitations on and to make a bunch of art on the book covers. And I couldn't bring myself to throw away the insides of the books.
No.
It was like, I'll use them for something. And so they were sitting there for ages. And then when I had this story, I was like, oh, wait a minute, I could paint all the art onto these old pages. But my publisher just thought we won't get copyright clearance to use all these old books. So I couldn't show very clearly at any place what books were being used, unfortunately. So that's why there's a lot of sandpaper, and it's a lot just like the feeling of an old book without actually showing any particular old books.
That's interesting. And was it difficult to create? I believe you used Collage and Gouache again, right?
Yeah. And that's something that my first two books were just watercolor. But the in my sketchbooks and then for a period of time I was doing commercial illustration, for newspapers or magazines or for advertisements, and I was experimenting a lot with collage and acrylic and gouache paint then, and I always knew I wanted to bring that into the picture books, and so this was the first chance that I got to do that because it just fit the story so well.
It was brilliant. So this book in particular was the first book that you did combine those mediums?
In published form, yes.
Published form. Wow. All right. Wonderful. All right. Let's see. Another book. So you briefly touched upon A Child of Books before, and how you collaborated with Sam Winston, who is a fine artist who works in typography. Can you describe what typography is specifically?
Typography is how a designer would lay out typed words on a page. So any book you read will have been typeset, and a typographer will design what the fonts are. So the way there's lots of, when you go to pick what font you want to use, they've all been designed. So Helvetica is a very obvious font, or Times New Roman, or dare I say it, even Comic Sans, although God forbid anybody who knows what they're doing in the arts world ever uses Comic Sans. But so Sam Winston would both design type fonts sometimes, but he would also use old simple type fonts to make art, to make landscapes or pictures out of those words. And so when we...
That typography, right?
Yes.
Right. Wonderful.
Typographic artist, I think he is technically.
Artist. That's good to know. And so how did you decide in collaborating for this illustration who was going to work on which parts? Or was it always he's just going to do the typography and you're going to add in the illustration after, or you were going to do the illustration before? How did it go?
When we met, he's London based, and we met in London, and he's one of those people that you meet where even though you've only met once, it feels like you've always known each other. So we got off on the right foot, and we just immediately clicked and got each other. And we knew we wanted to do something together. We weren't sure what it was. Anytime I'd be in London, I'd go see him. And anytime he was in New York, he'd come and see me. So we sort of slowly uncovered this nugget of an idea, which was that we both loved stories and the power of storytelling and the types of stories that we enjoyed growing up. And Sam is also dyslexic, and he has been doing a lot of work with kids who are dyslexic and those, especially those who feel that books aren't for them because they're dyslexic. And he noticed that there's a lot of people in graphic design actually are dyslexic. It takes something that a lot of people would see as an obstacle, and it turns it into an asset, because you look at letters and words in a different way than people who aren't dyslexic. But anyway, we knew that we wanted to make this story about books and about old books and about curiosity and about a love of reading. And we just decided that the only way it was going to work is if we were in the same place at the same time. And so we set aside 2 or 3 weeks, and we went to Atlanta, Georgia, to do this artist residency, and that's really where we come up with the meat and bones of the story and of how we would do it. And it was a really kind of complicated back and forth process where I'd do sketches, then he'd go and do the typography, and then send it back, and then I'd have to redo the line art to fit around the typography, and then we'll go back to him, and so it was very, very back and forth.
Did you find that challenging versus when you work on an illustration by yourself, or was it?
I did, but it was a good challenge. It was, I would never have worked like that on my own, but it was a very rewarding and enjoyable challenge rather than hard work. It was, we both were determined to find a way to make this work, and we knew it would look beautiful.
Yeah, it did. I mean, there's stunning images for sure. Let's see. The world of stories specifically in this book, this is just kind of an enchanting illustration that you did. How did you come upon this illustration? And it seems like you're adding a few different characters from other stories, like Little Red Riding Hood and Alice in Wonderland. Was that intentional, or
those all, everything mentioned in there that's obviously from a story is from a story that's mentioned in that book somewhere? So Alice in Wonderland is from whenever they're leaving the house and they go along the path, and it's like, under these words I will show you the way, and they're climbing down. That writing is actually from Alice in Wonderland, where it's they go down the rabbit hole.
And so you took characters then from the text that is included in the story, and then
exactly, yeah. So Black Beauty's there, there's Frankenstein's there, there's Treasure Island. Actually, if you look at the end papers, that's a bibliography of all the books that were used.
Oh, okay, yes, the end paper, this right here?
Yep.
Yep.
That's all the classic books that we used.
Oh, wow, Snow White and Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Oh, wow, okay, guys, at the end, we can see. I do have a question from a little 4-year-old girl who would like to know if you were this good of an artist when you were 4 years old.
Oh, well, to define good, people still ask me, it was like, why are my drawings so popular? I think the most important thing about drawing is, do you enjoy it? And do I enjoy drawing now? Or did I enjoy drawing as much at 4 as I do now? The answer is yes. I've learned a few more tricks and secrets, and I've got practice and I've got better, but I enjoy it just as much today as I did back then. And the secret is having fun and not really caring too much about what other people think. And I think the longer you try to make something look perfectly like the way it's supposed to be, like as I mentioned with Once Upon an Alphabet, it starts to become less interesting. Mm-hmm. So don't get hung up on making something look perfectly like the way it's supposed to.
That's wonderful advice. That's wonderful advice. And let's see, the last but not least book that we'd love to talk about, and I'm sure you could guess it, it is Here We Are. This book is just incredible. I feel like if I was an alien coming in from outer space, this would be the book that I'd want to use to guide me through what Earth is. And so we have a first grader named Jaffer who would like to know, and I would like to know too, is how did you get the idea in creating this book?
I had the idea for creating this book when my first son was born, and I was trying to explain the world around me to him, and some of it was I thought it was pretty comical talking to somebody who was 2 days old.
Yeah,
and obviously couldn't understand what I was saying,
like an alien.
And so I thought there was some humor in that and pointing out these really obvious things, but it felt like a lot of the things I was explaining to him were so obvious that even adults had forgotten them, myself included. And I thought there would be, I wouldn't be the only person who would benefit from re-remembering some of these basic principles of what it is to be a person living on planet Earth in the 21st century. So it began as a letter for him. But then when I started thinking about it, I was like, no, this would be better as a book. And I had a lot of fun drawing outer space and drawing all of the different aspects of the planet. And yeah, it's one of those ones where I couldn't believe it hadn't been done before. Although in saying that, what you just said, I'm very good friends with Sophie Blackwell, and she, when I was halfway through this book, we met for a beer with, and I know her husband very well, and I was telling her what I was working on. Her face dropped because she had been working on something similar-ish. No. She's now only just completed, and is coming out this autumn, but it's called If You Came to Earth, and it's written from the perspective of a pen pal between a 10-year-old boy and an alien, just as you described at the start. Whereas my book is written for one specific person, her book was written for all kids anywhere on Earth.
I'll get that book then and compare it with this one. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, we have one illustration that's in our gallery in particular that you did of the solar system that's in this.
Yes.
And
yes.
What went into the research? There's a lot of science in this book. What went into the research?
There is a lot of science. Nothing in it is factually incorrect, but I've always been really fascinated with just the sheer size of the solar system, the sheer amount of space that's in space. And I remember reading in the Bill Bryson book once that there is no such thing as an accurate map of the solar system because it will be impossible. And it's something that I'm determined to do one day, but it will take miles and miles and miles. So if you have an accurate model of the solar system, if Earth is going to be big enough so that you can see it with the naked eye. So let's say the size of a pea, or say it's the size of a pea. Say Earth's the size of a pea. You would still need 6 miles to go from the sun to Neptune.
Wow.
Which is a huge amount of space. And the sun, I think, will be about the size of a watermelon. Or a melon, rather, not a watermelon, but just a regular melon. And Jupiter would be, I think, the size of a ping pong ball.
Okay.
And there's miles and miles and miles of space in between each one.
Wow. So it took a lot of research then to create this book. A lot of, did you?
It did, yeah. It certainly did.
Brendan, in 6th grade, he loves penguins and would like to know how you came up with your idea for Lost and Found.
It's based on a true story of a kid from a school trip here actually climbing into Belfast Zoo penguin enclosure and managing to climb out again with a baby penguin under his arm. That really happened. Everybody was okay. The penguin was returned safely the next day, but that's what gave me the idea.
That's what gave you the idea? I love that.
Gave me the idea.
Jimmy in 1st grade also loves that book. And he would like to know, though, just in general, how you became an illustrator.
Once somebody pointed out that it's an actual job. I've always loved drawing, and people say, "When did you start?" I would answer, "When did you stop?" Because every kid likes to draw, and I just kept drawing, and I didn't stop.
Wonderful answer. And last question. This hopefully will be really easy. Anthony in 2nd grade would like to know, out of all the books you've made, which one is your favorite and why?
Oh, that's hard. At this point, here we are, I think, because it took so much research, and it's factual, and it's about love and unity and outer space. But I do have a special place in my heart for my new book that's coming out in October, What We'll Build, written for my daughter.
What We'll Build. Okay.
Yeah, you have to wait till then.
October, what's the date that we need to wait till?
I think October 5th, I think.
Okay, all right. We will make sure that's on our calendars.
All right.
Thank you, Oliver, for joining us for our pajama party interview with you.
Yes.
I hope
I'm going to go curl into bed right now and get my teddy bear.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day. And again,
thank you very much, Molly.
For your time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
What an exciting conversation with Oliver Jeffers. Now, let's use our imaginations and think outside the crayon box. Using a piece of paper and your favorite crayon, create illustrations that you think that crayon would make. Thank you for joining me. I hope you and your family visit the museum soon. This exhibition will be on view until October 25th, 2020. Sweet dreams.